Fortunately for me, I've had a professional conversion experience, like a real one. To illustrate it a bit, I want to pull in one of my all-time favorite baseball movie monologues. It's the opening by Susan Sarandon's character in Bull Durham. And while I play it for you, I want you to listen carefully to her words because I'm going to come back to them. We started in 2008 when some quite bold and enterprising executive leaders of children's hospitals broke invisible barriers of competition to authorize passionate clinicians to collaborate for the sole purpose of eliminating serious healthcare harm. And to the delight and amazement of everyone, within just about 2 years, it actually started to work. And we kind of started to brag about it, which prompted the federal government of the United States to issue us a DARE. One other little Cleveland trivia thing we're really proud of. Maybe you've seen A Christmas Story and you know about the double dog dare, which is what I think about every time I say the word dare. Don't put your tongue on a flagpole in the winter. But that wasn't the dare. In this case, CMS said to us, we'll give you some money if you'll spread it around the country. And I remember thinking to myself, spread what? Dude, we just got started. I don't even know if this is real. But we did it. And all of my hesitation now makes me think I should have watched Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams is an iconic movie in which Ray Kinsella, an Iowa farmer, is inspired by a voice that he can't ignore to pursue a dream he can hardly believe, to turn his ordinary cornfield into a place where dreams come true. The mantra that runs through the movie is the voice that appears whenever he has doubts. If you build it, he will come, which is often misquoted as, if you build it, they will come. And such was the beginning of SPS. But we're really pretty far from the end of the movie, and our dream definitely hasn't come true. But nevertheless, I want to share with you some of our major milestones that we've reached so far that I hope will make you feel proud of children's hospitals, and I hope will give you some optimism for safety and healthcare despite those awful numbers I shared with you. Unless you think I am overdosing on optimism, I'm going to sprinkle in what I see are some really serious strategic challenges and some hard lessons learned that we've had, major adjustments that we've had to make over the years as we go the distance. We were either smart or lucky or both at the beginning when we developed some of our OG principles. We got those right. There's actually not a one of them that doesn't still make a lot of good sense today, 12 years later. There might be a couple more I'd add, but I want to talk to you about a couple of them today in no specific order. I'm going to start with, we won't compete on safety. So for this discussion, we might need like a sociologist or a psychologist, maybe a philosopher, some competition, some benchmark, some goal to strive for is motivating and inspiring to people. However, I've observed that competition in the context of a learning collaborative beyond very small doses can be quite problematic. But of course, it's not as easy as just saying, okay, hey guys, let's not compete. In our world, competitive pressures come from all kinds of places, and each one really has some logical justification. The government, for example, imposes publicly reported measures and wishes to link performance with reimbursement. Seems like a reasonable motivational strategy and an important nod to transparency. We have all these business-minded people on our boards and leadership teams who want to differentiate the hospital to increase market share and ability to attract talent. And they're attempted to use safety performance as a lever for that, kind of like the US News and World Report hospital rankings. All this is easily justified because, as is often said, no margin, no mission. It's also popular on children's hospital boards to put financial incentives in place for executives and leaders that are linked to goals, which they posit will get everybody focused and lined up in the right areas. And even patients and families and many others like to latch on goals, particularly the concept of zero, that, as you know, has inspired a lot of thoughtful buzz and concern among safety thinkers and academics who appreciate how this well-meaning concept can have unexpected consequences. But to a certain degree, these strategies work. People buy in, like really buy in. They will achieve these goals at the expense of almost everything else. And of course, that's the problem. When we first started our network, we used to use the phrase, steal shamelessly. And I don't really like that phrase because we don't steal. It sort of implies something devious and reinforces the idea that we're competing. Instead, we share generously and receive graciously. And that's actually an amazingly powerful model that has accelerated safety improvement and is certainly a key to our network's success. You know, like in your industry, it's hard to value non-events that might signal success in safety. Another example hits a little closer to home for safety leaders. Although not one of our principles, our original network approach was built on the concept that we need to identify best practices, name them as a standard that we call a bundle, and then poke and prod and goad people everywhere to comply with them. To oversimplify, if we could just get everyone to do the damn identified standard reliably, we'd be playing for the pennant. This worked very, very well for many years, as is evidenced by some of the results that I shared with you. We saw that as reliability increased to one of our SPS process bundles, rates of that type of harm went down. Oh, how pleased we were. The problem is that standardization, adaptation, and innovation are strange bedfellows. In fact, they don't even live in the same house. Standardization in the form of process bundles or policies or standard operating procedures takes some of the thinking out of the work of the patient care in the hopes of replacing variability with best practice. This might be a concept that works producing toilet paper or toasters or Cadillacs, where you want everyone to have the same efficiency and quality. But we've applied it liberally in children's healthcare in the hopes of making our organizations safer. Almost every harm area in SPS has a set of these standard processes. And we've historically asked hospitals to audit, measure, and report reliability to these. We then spent a lot of energy toward the goal of reaching and sustaining 95% reliability. So if you remember Todd's stick yesterday, worker obedience was at the bottom. While much of our success to date was associated with this approach, I'm afraid that we have now entered a new world, a world I call asymptopia. The rates of decline of some of our most common harms is planing off. And that's a problem for sure. And there are other downsides to what I call the culture or cult of reliability. Two I'd like to highlight today are the stifling of innovation and resilience. During COVID and the immediate aftermath, as you know, there was a critical shortage of nurses that frustrated everyone, and also fostered the phenomenon of the traveling nurse. This was a frustrating situation for frontline teams because many new people were being introduced who didn't know the policies and procedures and didn't know the bundles and weren't doing things the same way the locals did. And I don't know the evidence, if there is any, on the overall impact that traveling nurses and the traveling nurse phenomenon had on safety in the COVID era. But what I will tell you is that I've heard numerous examples of clinical leaders who, while continuing to acknowledge how difficult it was to have new people join a team, also acknowledged that they've changed the way they do things after learning a better way to do it from one of the traveling nurses. An uncontrolled study in frontline innovation. So much of this focus on reliability and doing it that way that there's no clear, open, structured, endorsed space for exploring alternatives. The culture of reliability discourages a mindset that's trying to find new and better ways. We've taken the data-driven, evidence-based standards that we're oh so proud of and then adopted the flawed assumption that we have it right. So I think about Susan Sarandon's description in this context. And if you don't mind, I've taken the liberty to adapt it to my own experience, and you can see if it resonates with you. I believe in the church of proactive safety. I've studied all the major religions. I've worshiped Buddha, Allah, Brahma, auditing, bundles, compliance, air types, retraining, root causes, standard work, blame, punishment, policies, procedures, never events. I know things. For instance, organizations feel better about themselves after an event if they can identify someone to blame. And auditing produces data that executives love. When I heard that, I gave Safety One a chance. But it just didn't work out for me. The Lord laid so much guilt on me for disrespecting the front line, and our outcomes plateaued. I now prefer learning to retraining. It's never boring. And if you do it right, it feels like real teamwork. I never met a frontline worker who didn't have something to teach me. You know, learning is like hitting a baseball. You gotta shut up and focus. Because there's a certain amount of life wisdom these workers have. They can expand our understanding of if work is done and show us better ways. Sometimes when I have a worker all alone, I read Todd Conklin or David Woods to him. And these people are so sweet, they always stay and listen. Of course, a guy will listen to anyone if he thinks people are listening back. I make them feel confident that I'm working as hard as I can to improve the system so they can do the jobs they signed up for safely and effectively. And they make me feel useful. Of course, I can't always give them instantaneous solutions to big safety problems, and what they give me lasts a lifetime. Sometimes it feels like a bad trade, but trade-offs are common in safety. It's a long road, and you gotta trust. I've tried them all, I really have, but the only church that truly feeds the soul day to day is the church of proactive safety. What do you think? You good?